Ollie got a call from a client that wanted him to help identify a strange object. It was an intriguing one, and it also seemed like it was going to be a straightforward mystery for once. So Ollie said, sure. The guy came over at about 1 o'clock that day. He had in his hands a bag. I brought him in and offered him some coffee, which the guy took, and they sat down in Ollie's living room area. And he took an object wrapped in a towel out of the bag. Said, so, I found this in my dad's attic. He passed away last year. And I want you to figure out what it is, because it looks so cool. My dad didn't have a lot of whimsical stuff. He was a great guy, but he didn't have just like random wizard staff heads. And that didn't fit. So I'm trying to figure out what this thing is. I said, okay, wizard staff heads. Well, let me show you. The guy unwrapped the object. Well, I could see why the guy described it as a wizard staff head. It was wood of some kind, about 3 inches or so in diameter, roughly a cylinder, but very intricately carved. It had a big round bit at the top, but like a claw hand grabbing the sphere, and that then came into this arm that had kind of a bangly pattern that transitioned into a square kind of a pattern. The whole thing was about 6 inches long. Really ornate and interesting. And there was some paint work, and there was a couple of the pieces were inlaid with some kind of metal. Overall, a very cool piece, Ollie said. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head what this is, but I have some ideas about how I could figure it out. So they talked for a few minutes about Ollie's rates, and that all seemed fine to the client. So he left Ollie with the thing and the bag and the towel, just in case. Ollie first went to a friend of his that does a lot of woodworking. Just makes things out of wood. That's a hobby mostly. Occasionally, he'd have a client, but mostly it was a hobby. I said, all right, Miles, what do you think of this thing a client wants me to figure out? And I said, oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's really cool. First of all, well, I don't really know what to make of this, honestly, but hold on a second. And he got out a magnifying glass and looked carefully at the sphere. He said, yeah, it's hickory, which is slightly unusual, not horribly unusual. But yeah, it's a difficult wood to work with, but can be beautiful like this. And from what I can tell, other than those bits of inlay, it's all one piece. Huh, I said, all right. Any idea about who I should talk to next? I said, well, it looks old. So, you should go and check out, you should ask at the Baltimore Finishing Works over in Remington. Because they get a lot of antique stuff coming through there. And they might be able to tell you about the paint or finish or whatever it is, too. Well, it's a fairly standard varnish he's got on there. But what is that thing? Yeah, whatever it is, they took a lot of time with it to make this. It's got to be something from a home. I mean, almost got to be something from a home. Or maybe a really fancy hotel, but I don't think even that, because in a fancy hotel, you usually want a lot of a thing. You wouldn't have just one of an object. You'd have, one for every room, or at least one for many of the rooms. Now, I think this is like a handcrafted piece here. One thing I'm seeing here, though, is at the bottom, opposite end from the sphere, it looks rough, like it's been cut off or broken. You see that? Like someone put the finish, yeah, this varnish over it, the whole thing. But yeah, look at the bottom. And all I noticed that yeah, it was kind of rough. It wasn't, especially in contrast to all the really delicately done woodwork on the rest of it. All I said. All right. Any ideas of who I should talk to next? I said, yeah, actually, I do have an idea. That pattern in the squares in the bottom, it rings a bell for me somewhere. And I think you should ask. I've got this buddy, and she's an art historian. She's a professor down at Micah. I feel like she might recognize that pattern. I can almost place it. So yeah. Go talk to Sheila. So Ollie went down to Micah and found this Sheila. She's a professor of art history. She said, "Oh, that's interesting. That is a kind of a motif that you did see in some Baltimore handicrafts. Not just Baltimore, as far north of Philadelphia and as far south as Richmond, but it was a kind of a pattern that was in style. And you would see that kind of decorative motif. It's kind of like a plaid would be, or a paisley. It was just like a pattern that people used. And yeah, in the late 19th century. So it's an old piece, whatever it is. Really cool. So I got to figure out what it is, though. I mean, that's really interesting. Don't get me wrong. That's a clue. But any thoughts about what this could be from? And the client said he found it in his father's attic. Yeah, I said. He thought it might be a wizard's staff or something, but no. I mean, you did have people doing things like the Renaissance Fair. I mean, not exactly like that, even back then. But, making things like wizard staffs and walking sticks and stuff like that. But this is too thick. It's too far around. Like, it wouldn't be comfortable to hold a staff of that diameter. And it'd probably be pretty heavy if it was all hickory. Oh, I see what you mean, Ollie. I see what you mean, Ollie said. Let me look at that bottom. Should look at the bottom, the unfinished bit. I said, you know what? I've got a friend over that studies a lot of furniture. Here. Let's just walk right down there. His office is just down the hall. I don't care. Get out. I said, oh. He said it's from the late 19th century. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a bit less mysterious than a wizard's staff. I think it's a bedpost. Is it a bedpost? Yeah. It's a good material for that. Hickory, I mean. And around that time, it would probably be done at home, but in somebody's hobby wood shop, maybe made for a child or a grandchild or something. But you see some of this really ornate work in two places. It's interesting. You see it in places where the adults have time for leisure, which at that time either meant they were very rich or they were very poor. So you'd see sometimes this kind of ornate work in really poor households because they didn't have any work and they had to make all their own stuff. And then you see it in rich households because people are able to retire or they're able to not work. And so they were taking up some of these handicrafts as a hobby about that time. That's where you started to see other kinds of, things like this, or, the bringing back of crafts as a hobby. I think this has got to be from a rich household, just because of the way that the metal is inlaid there, and because it's hickory, which is more expensive. Oh, said Sheila, that would make sense. And hold on, she opened up something on her tablet that she brought with her. If we narrow it down to there, yeah, it kind of looks like this. I said, and she pulled up a picture, and it was a picture of a four-poster bed, and the shape, like the thing being depicted, was totally different. It wasn't a sphere at the end. There wasn't a hand holding it, but the notion was very similar. It was a four-poster bed, and the two end posts at the feet were these ornate gargoyle-looking things. I think that's your answer, Ollie. All right. Well, that's great. We solved it so quick. So, well, we can never be sure, but yeah. Then the question becomes: is it something that the client's father found, or is it something the client's father that got passed down from the generations? Oh, I said, interesting. So the next day, he called up the client, had him come in, and said, well, I found out some information for you. It's a piece of an old bed frame. It's a bedpost, probably from the foot side of the bed. And it was probably handmade, and it's from the late 19th century, so it's really old. It's a really cool piece. It's hickory, but probably at some point someone was salvaging from this bed. That maybe it was broken, maybe they're getting rid of it or something, because they cut it off the bed frame, and then they put some varnish over the whole thing, including the cut surface. So maybe they had to move out of the country in a hurry or something, or and they wanted to keep a piece of this. I don't know. You probably have to talk to your family some and see if this is something your dad found, or if this is like a family heirloom. I said, that's awesome. That's so cool. And yeah, my uncle and my great aunt are, they live here in the States. And yeah, this will give me a good excuse to visit. They're both up in southern Pennsylvania. I'll see if they know what's going on with this. If there's a fancy bed frame in the family history somewhere. I do remember my dad saying that the family had to move suddenly. They came here to this area they were moving north. They were escaping the South, and they came up here to get out of the South. I don't remember exactly why. I'll have to ask them where they were moving from. Okay, this is awesome. You really got me started. This is going to be a whole family history project. This is great. Ollie, I really appreciate your help. I said, sure. It was a fun exercise. I got to talk to a lot of interesting people. Oh, you know what? Let me give you the names of some of these sources that I got, because as you get more information, I bet especially the two MICA professors I talked to might be interested to hear what the answer is as you get closer. So I gave them the contact information for the two MICA professors, and they parted ways. And that was the case of Ollie and the mysterious wooden object.